At my apartment. It's a clear Los Angeles day, about 85 degrees and almost perfect as far as days go, but it's early and I'm in one of my regular moods, not wanting to be bothered at this point in the day, but it's Mom, so I answer it. Mom, I'm back, sorry. You just wake up, she says? For some reason, she can always tell when I just woke up. It's like one of her superpowers or something, no matter how hard I try and hide it. Even if I was just brushing my teeth or jumping out of an airplane, she'd say, "You sound tired." "Yeah," I gruffly speak. "You want me to call you back?" she says. I sip on my hot coffee and wait to reply, as if I tell her yes, I'm liable to be doing something later and I will in fact ignore that call, so it's just easier to stay on the phone. Plus, what am I actually doing right now besides drinking coffee? Nothing. "No, Mom, it's just, this is fine. I have to leave later on, so this is good," I tell her. "What's up?" "Nothing, just haven't talked to you in a while," she says. "It's all the same, really. They opened up a new grocery store near me, but I haven't tried it yet." "Don't you go to Trader Joe's anymore?" she asks. I didn't say that. Defensively, I answer. "I'm just thinking that maybe I should try something else." "Maybe. Are you still writing?" "Yes, Mom," I reply. I love my mother dearly, but when she calls, I get so impatient and want to slam the phone down. She asks me these simple questions that for some reason send me off the deep end. Not that they're bad questions, mind you, but they're said at the wrong time. I'm not quite ready to hear them. "Honey, you seem a little stressed out," she she says awkwardly. "No, Mom, I'm fine," I say. "Are you planning on coming home this summer?" she asks. "I don't think I can. Why?" Although the truth is that I know exactly why she's asking me. This happens every year around this time. "Your grandma's having her yearly rummage sale, and it would be so nice to have an extra hand around," she says with a tone. "Mom, I thought we'd been through this," I tell her. I know," she says automatically. "I mean, I can forget about Christmas and come, but," I say. No, you're right. I just don't get why this is such a chore getting you here," she cuts me off. "Listen, Ma, I really have to get going. John's expecting me soon." Trying to end the conversation short. "Okay, talk to you soon. Love you." Says, "Love you too." I hang up the phone, setting it on my lap. My coffee is still steaming from the cup, and I take a large gulp from it. It feels so good going down that I take another one immediately. The coursing liquid somehow helps me brace what I'm not entirely ready to come to terms with. I haven't been to Grandma's place since the summer that the cherry tree was cut down. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't go again. I still see Grandma. She's as dear as anyone I've ever met. More than I can describe. I just cannot go there anymore. Not after that. I sometimes think that it was all a dream. I invented it in my head. If it wasn't for my mind remembering it so clearly, I began to dissect it inside, the time and the place, her face glowing and forever, the kingly tree radiating in autumn's shimmering sunlight. It became at times like another voice and spirit whose presence became to loom over the house, the table, and our activities. I don't know if my brother Matty ever felt it at all. We never discussed it, nor could we. It seemed as if it was a secret Grandma and me had, and we became giddy as one gets on Christmas. But we're sworn not to mention it, upon pains of death. So we kept silent. Even when it was cut down, we stood some ways off, looking on. It appeared like a beheading or funeral procession, watching from the crowd among peasants in some provincial European village. I could imagine some throwing rotten fruit or yelling indecipherable obscenities to the towering stage above them. But it wasn't like that. It was quick and painful. that would seem to keep continuing in me for days and months. And as months turned into years, it slowly faded from memories and was forgotten. Even the remains of the stump soon was lost among grass and moss that began to grow on top of it, disappeared in the sunlight days and windy nights. There hasn't been any cherries for a long time now. It was many years since I first saw the cherry tree, as it hung in the azure stream sky, cascading among the wind, which it joined to dance with. The end was always the hardest when I was asked, silently and in confidence, to bury away everything I learned in those sultry months. To forget for 9 months of blistering cold, but I didn't forget. Not really. I was in waiting for the end of May to approach. I could tell that time was nearing, not only because I could feel this energy bubbling up in me. Also, my brother received some new clothes for hunting and was very excited about wearing them the next time he was in the woods. I began to pack early this year. I couldn't handle the anticipation. I recently moved across the hall in the upstairs about a year ago, so finally I had my own room. Prior, they used to use it as a guest bedroom, but since we lived far out in the country, we didn't have many visitors. And if we ever did, I could always bunk back up with Maddie. We had our own space now, which I felt was beneficial. I heard a knock on the door and pivoted my head, and the door opened and Maddie walked in. He crossed the room and sat next to me on the floor. "It's the last week of school," he said excitedly. "I know, are you excited?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm done with this year. I want to go back." He beamed. "Me too," I said. I looked at Maddie, who seemed to be down in the mouth. He seemed so sad, and I put my hand on his slumped over shoulder. He didn't respond, but stayed in his funk, so I got up on to my knees next to him and began to lightly shake him with both my hands. His body started to weave back and forth to the point of him losing control of it, and then suddenly he fell over on his side. He let out a big scream, which followed with uncontrollable laughter. I sat watching him for a moment, cracking a smile and following suit. I dramatically fainted and fell near him, laughing like a hyena as I did it. After a while, the laughter began to die out because we were out of energy for the moment. It was silent, and I felt that I needed to say something to him. I was the older brother, after all. I think we should ask them if we can go to Grandma. We can go early to Grandma's, I proposed. Plus, we will be done with school. "Would they say yes?" he asked me. I don't know, but we gotta try." He propped himself on his arm and looked at me with those innocent eyes. He was trying to think about what he was going to say, and a couple start-stops happened. He began to get frustrated and finally was able to get something out. "You can tell them, right? You do it right," he mutters. "Sure," I said. And he resumed his former position, with his head back, staring at the ceiling. The ceiling was acoustical, and for one birthday my dad put up all these plastic glow-in-the-dark stars that would light up like a constellation in the sky. And for the first couple of days I was so enthralled with them that as soon as it became dark, I would go into my bedroom, become lost in the astronomical brilliance that was my tiny attic bedroom. I haven't really looked at them in some time. I took them for granted, though. I really do love them. I turned my head and I could see that Maddie was under their spell also. "They're neat, huh?" I asked. "Yeah, they are. I wish I had some." He gave a sigh of exhaustion, yawned, and curled up on the floor next to me. I smirked because I knew that in a matter of minutes he would be fast asleep, so I continued to look up at those plastic stars. That they weren't in the correct formation, though, but they were beautiful anyways. I used to pretend that Orion's belt was wherever I wanted it to be, and the Little Dipper would trail behind the Big Dipper just as a baby duck follows its mama. And I thought how large the universe was and how tiny we are in it, and I began to get tired, so I turned over on my side and let my head fall down on my arm. My mind wanted to go on with the sky and the stars and how big everything was now, but I knew that I needed to think about these coming up months. I couldn't wait. So I slowly drifted from consciousness to a little house crushed between plush farmland and the endless flowing rivers, and was dead to the world around me. It was 2 weeks before we went back to the country of our youth. The day was so clear that you could trace the clouds with your fingertips as the wind came down from the north and began to dissipate in all the colorful shapes and animals of the sky. Everything was just as we left it months ago. The cows and the horses, just beyond the rickety fence that bound their property together, barely moved along the grass, neighing and mooing under the sweltering noon-May sky. Farther on from the house was the patches of strawberries, raspberries, and rhubarbs, bushes brimming with wild raspberries and corn stalks tall as scarecrows, towering above the rest of the vegetables in the garden. Everything was in full bloom, ready to be picked: peas, carrots, tiny radishes, and a plethora of herbs, flowers, and plants, all screaming the joyous occasion of summer's approaching time. The grass was freshly mowed, which no doubt kept Grandpa busy for a good portion of the morning. Right behind the house, near the patch, was a small duck pond, flush with mallards and wood ducks, splashing along the surface as they maneuvered, trying to spot bits of food to eat, floating along the top of the water. The river, I was told this year unusually was low, which Grandpa says is a pain in his ass because the fish won't come down due to the lack of room to move around. We quickly unloaded all the bags in the car, had another feast, which was Grandma's specialty. After dinner was finished, Mom and Dad got into the car and drove off along the dusty gravel that lined the driveway, and they were gone. Another summer in paradise under the smiling moon. We watched them leave and waited to hear the rustling of frogs and toads in the grass near our feet. And soon the bats would come winging by the old metal street lamp that stood in the center by the cement walkway. We'd stand there until he finally smashed into it. My brother and I would giggle and point. "Hush, boys! He can't see, it's not his fault," my grandma said, holding back her snickering. "Grammy, what do you mean? He has no eyes?" my brother asked. "No. How does he move if he can't see?" "By his ears, honey." She points to his ears. "Ah," he replies. But you could see that he didn't understand. Neither did I. I didn't understand how something could move without the use of its eyes. I thought that would just be the worst, a difficult life. My grandma motioned for us to go inside, and we followed her, closing the door behind us. People in the country never lock their doors. For some reason, there's no need, which I've always considered strange. She made us some hot cocoa and a bowl of popcorn. We sat down to wind down for the evening in front of the TV. My brother looked at me with his large, funny-looking smile. I smiled back. We were back where we wanted to be, at least for this moment in time. This was heaven right now. I woke up with the sun spread across my face like a mask, poking the one eye I could see it was in fact morning. I gradually opened the other and blinked them rapidly to adjust to the light. I put my arms on the bed, pulling my hips back against the pillow. I looked to my side, but it was empty. I felt the sheets that were still warm. He must have just got up. So I got out of bed with a jump in my step and quickly dressed and came into the kitchen. They were having breakfast at the table.